Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth lecture in this grammar and style series for the Legal Writing Online class. What will we be covering in this lecture? We'll be covering prepositions and conjunctions. So prepositions generally. And now we're in 5.172, 173, and 174. So basically, the prepositions are a function word that show the relationship between the object and another element in another part of the sentence. So what does this mean? So prepositions usually express things like position, above, below, beneath, under, direction, so towards, to, time, after, before, during, until, the source, so like from or of, the object of the preposition is usually a noun or a pronoun, and remember these are in the objective case, right? So pronouns in the objective case. So, for example, to me, between me and them, objective case. So we have simple and compound prepositions. A simple preposition is a monosyllabic word, as, at, by. And a compound preposition is two or more syllables, and can be made up of two or more words. So if you look at something like into, outside, upon, these are the combination of two words. So simple and compound prepositions. We also have phrasal prepositions. So the preposition phrase, prepositional phrases in general consist of a preposition and its object, the object of the preposition. And then you could add any other items that modify the object. So this prepositional phrase, this piece of the preposition, it can be a noun, it can be an adverb, or an adjective. So for example, they give, for James, to change his mind would be a miracle. To change his mind. For James to change his mind, right? For James being this noun prepositional phrase. An adverb, sometimes we call this an adverbial phrase. So in this situation would be, we strolled through the glade. So describing how we strolled in this situation. Or an adjective, adjectival phrase. We love to see the cathedrals of Paris. We would love to see the cathedrals of Paris. What cathedrals? The cathedrals of Paris. So the prepositional function. So prepositions in general signal relationships, right? And I described those relationships earlier. They might have a spatial relationship, a time relationship, a causal relationship, possessive relationship, exceptions, support, opposition, and concession. The main ones, relationship, right? To, from, into, out of. Time, until, at. We also have causal, because of. Possession, without, with. Exceptions, but for. Etc. Now, where do we place the prepositional phrases? So a prepositional phrase with an adverbial or adjective function, they need to be placed as close as possible to the word it modifies. So just think as close as the word that it is modifying as possible. Now, there's this idea that you can't end a sentence with a preposition. It's really personal preference, but I don't think that that's the case anymore. You don't have to avoid ending a sentence and with a preposition. Now, this concept of an elliptical prepositional phrase. So prepositional phrases might be what's called elliptical, or an independent expression without an antecedent. So what's the antecedent is the thing that it's making reference to. And the example would be include, for example, right? For instance, in any event, in the last analysis, in the long run, that sort of thing. These are independent expressions. That don't need an antecedent. They don't have an antecedent. So pronoun case in prepositional phrases. So if you have a pronoun in a prepositional phrase, it's the objective case. Usually the objective case. So to me, for me, between them. So the objective pronoun. So as the Chicago Manual Style points out, than could function as a preposition or a conjunction. So, for example, he is taller than I. So kind of the he is taller than I am, right? Or he's taller than me, right? So if the am is kind of understood there, it's the I. Or you could say he's taller than me. So it can function, than can function either as a conjunction or a preposition. So the Chicago Manual style notes that taller than I has predominated over taller than me. In American English. So I would use I. So he is taller than I am. So some other prepositional issues, like and only. So like is a preposition. It's a difficult one. It's usually an adjective, not an adverb. So for example, as a preposition, like is followed by a noun or a pronoun in the objective case, right? So he looks like me. That person looks like me. But sometimes in ordinary speech, nowadays, like will displace as or as if. To connect is a conjunction to connect clauses. But the important thing here is to understand that like is followed by a pronoun in the objective case. Only also is an adjective, adverb, and a conjunction. It can modify anything. But it only modifies the thing that immediately follows it. So think about that when you're drafting. If it's too early, it's the only is de-emphasized. It can also alter the meaning, create ambiguity. Those things you want to avoid. So, for example, a good example they give in the Chicago Manual style, I bought only tomatoes at the market. What does that mean? Does that mean they bought only tomatoes and nothing else? But then compare that to I bought tomatoes only at the market. I didn't buy them anywhere else. I didn't buy tomatoes from any other place. So just be cognizant of where you're placing the only, realizing that the placement can cause ambiguity. So there's this idea in the Chicago Manual of Style that you don't want to overuse prepositions. And they give a rule of thumb. As a matter of fact, one preposition for every 10 to 15 words. Which is a good rule of thumb. It can kind of get cumbersome to the reader or the listener to listen to prepositions and to understand what's going on. For example, with place, time, situation, that sort of thing, with too many prepositions. Eliminating prepositional phrases. If you can do it, you can eliminate a prepositional phrase. So the example they give, the most important ingredient in this recipe can be changed to the most important ingredient. Right? If it's clear by the context that you're talking about a recipe. You don't need to say "in this recipe" over and over and over again. Cutting unnecessary prepositions. This idea of nominalizations. So when a noun is ending in ance, ence, ityment, tion, so qualification, qualification, performance, perform is performance. These are called nominalizations. So you can use a verb instead of these nominalizations, right? So the examples they give: toward maximization of, you could simply use to maximize. Our efforts towards maximization of profits failed could be edited to our efforts to maximize profits failed. Tightening up that language and making it easier to read. (5.190) replacing prepositional phrases with adverbs. A good adverb can replace a weak prepositional phrase. And the example they give is the president spoke with force compared to the president spoke forcefully. To the listener, it feels more direct. It's easier to comprehend what's going on. Same thing with replacing prepositional phrases with genitives. Especially if you're using, especially an of genitive. So, for example, they give, I was dismayed by the complexity of the street map. Changing it to the street map's complexity dismayed me. And using active voice. This is kind of what all of this is kind of leading to. Using the active voice to eliminate prepositions. So usually changing from passive to active voice, you eliminate a preposition. You eliminate the by, preposition. So, for example, the class was taught by Professor Shope. Can be changed to Professor Shope taught the class. So prepositional idioms, you can go through and I would consult 5.195 for a list of words and the prepositions construed with them. I often get asked this question. Is it, based on or based in, or based at, that sort of thing. So you can go to this this word. So based could be based upon a premises, based in a place, or based at a place. In the law, we're binding on a person. It's compared with, comply with a rule or law. Consist of or consist in a quality. Depending on preferably not depending upon. Equivalent to, and Chicago Manual Style says preferably not with. So trade for, or trade in, or trade with. So I would consult that list in 1.195.195. So conjunctions. What's a conjunction? Conjunction is a function word. It connects sentences, clauses, or word within a clause. We have correlative conjunctions. So something along the lines of, if we have a construction like as, if, then, either or, neither nor, both and. So these correlative conjunctions frame structurally identical or matching sentence parts. So if the example they give is, they not only read the book, but also saw the movie. So each member of the pair precedes the same part of speech, in essence. So beginning a sentence with a conjunction, the belief is you can't begin a sentence with a conjunction. That's just not correct. You can begin a sentence with and, but, or so. There may be situations where but may be unclear at the beginning of the sentence in certain situations. The rule of thumb, the rule the Chicago Manual of Style suggests, and the rule the approach I take is, if you can substitute and for but at the beginning of the sentence, the but is probably being used incorrectly. Now, beginning the sentence with however, the Chicago Manual of Style says that however is more effectively used within a sentence because it is emphasizing a word that precedes it. So if it's at the beginning, it doesn't have that opportunity to emphasize the word that precedes it because it's at the beginning of the sentence. This is a style, a choice. It's not a strict grammar choice. But there are those who don't use the word however at the beginning of the sentence. It's up to you. And then finally, conjunctions and the number of a verb. So coordinating and disjunctive verbs or conjunctions affect whether a verb should be plural or singular. So, for example, if you're using and through, a plural verb is correct. So if you say something, and this is the example they give, the best vacation and the worst vacation of my life were on cruises. the first through seventh endings were scoreless. Now, if you have something like or and either or, the singular verb is used. If the elements are singular. So, for example, a squirrel or a chipmunk raids the bird feeder. Either William or Henry dances with so-and-so. So, the singular verb in this situation. So that's all I'd like to talk about in this lecture. Thanks, everybody. Take care, and looking forward to see you in the next lecture.